Welcome to the Consciousness Anywhere and Everywhere podcast. I am Shannon O'Hara, and I invite you to a completely new world of possibilities. Hello, wonderful world, and welcome to the first podcast of 2026 on the Consciousness Anywhere podcast. I'm Shannon O'Hara. If you're tuning into me for the first time, prepare for something weird. We're going to get weird in this podcast. I have been doing a spotlight feature on many of the Talk to the Entities specialties. Talk to the Entities is an Access Consciousness specialty class that I founded and created under the auspices of Access Consciousness, using many of the empowering tools of entity clearing and transformation from Access. I am a spirit-sensitive person. I have been all my life, and like the title may denote, Talk to the Entities is essentially about talking to entities, but so much more. It is really the system designed to make spirit awareness in all of its forms manageable, possible, expansive, and incorporate it into our daily lives, because spirits are all around. They are part of the natural world. You will one day be a spirit. So welcome to the focus of today's podcast, which is Beings of Light. So the Beings of Light class is not technically a Talk to the Entities specialty class, but it is in that I facilitate the Beings of Light class, and it is a specialty of Talk to the Entities because it focuses on, you guessed it, light beings. And the reason I said that we're going to get weird today is mostly just because this topic requires a level of departure from the form and structure of what so many believe is real and true. And one of the interesting parts about talking about this topic is I think I present it in a very matter-of-fact, insignificant, clear way. However, the universe of entities and the way people have dealt with entities throughout millennia has and can lend itself to a lot of heaviness and creepiness and strangeness. And a lot of people talking about light beings or beings of light make it hugely significant and kind of creepy. And the reason I want to bring that up in the beginning is any sort of thing that comes up for you when I bring up beings of light, whether it's like a memory of listening to some person who was like disempowering around the topic or tried to create a lot of significance or control around the topic, like it happens. But in truth, awareness is, dare I say, insignificant and immeasurably profound simultaneously. And since Talk to the Entities is a specialty or subclass of Access Consciousness, it is really founded on the basic principles of Access Consciousness, which is interesting point of view. No form, no structure, no significance. Consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. So we view the spirit world through that lens. No significance, no form, no structure. We include all spirits, demons and light beings, unconscious entities, totally conscious entities, fun entities, totally annoying entities. We include them all without judgment. And awareness is just awareness. It isn't a big, significant, dramatic experience. However, a lot of people try to prove they're being aware with a lot of trauma and drama, which is a conversation for another time. If you are interested in this energy of beings of light, I strongly encourage you to check out the book I wrote entitled Beings of Light. It's the second Talk to the Entities book. The first Talk to the Entities book is called Talk to the Entities. This is my story of growing up with the tools of access, but also being an entity-aware child, teen, young adult. And then the Beings of Light book came about 10 years after the first Talk to the Entities book. It is a small but mighty body of work. So I didn't realize about light beings initially. Like, because I grew up, like, as a child, like most children are aware. Now, that awareness is like, just saying aware might mean something to you as an adult, but it might be like too undefined for you, or you don't really get what that means because we're not actually taught about awareness. But what I mean by awareness is beyond your five senses, right? So there's so much to be aware of psychically, energetically, multidimensionally, that so many of us are aware of, but not educated, empowered on that we are aware, and then how to work with awareness in a productive, transformative way. So we come in with awareness. And if we're not raised in an environment that champions awareness or permits awareness, or even in worst case scenarios, we're raised in an environment that's against awareness, that's anti-awareness, then we tend to learn really early on that that is not a safe, easy thing to function from. And instead of having awareness that expands our universes, we have awareness that we then think we're crazy, we're wrong. But awareness isn't wrong, it's strong. So my entity journey was being an entity aware child and having no reference point for that. It just was what was. And then becoming a teenager and realizing that that wasn't what was normal. That this stuff that I was seeing was, most people weren't seeing it. In fact, there was a huge denial of it existing. And I went into tremendous conflict around it due to me. I wanted to be normal. I wanted to be like others, but I couldn't. So I basically, what entity aware people have to do is they suppress, they repress, they can self-medicate. It becomes this place where the sort of natural, peaceful reality of spirit awareness, which if it isn't judged and it isn't resisted, actually is peaceful. But that is distorted into all sorts of psychological and physiological issues through repression, judgment, because you can't actually make awareness go away. You can't make awareness go away. You can go unconscious to it, but the awareness is still there. And so what occurs a lot with people is when they try to turn off the voices, or they, as a very small child, have a spirit interaction and try to go to somebody they trust or love who's supposed to protect them, and they say, hey, there's something under my bed, or I hear voices, or I saw grandma walking down the hall when grandma died like 5 years ago. You know, if that's not met with openness, awareness, and the willingness to participate in the expansion of that awareness, that spirit perception, then we, in that moment, start believing that our awareness is wrong and that there's something wrong with us. And as soon as that seed is planted, it sets us off on a path of distortion. So I was also on that path of distortion, but what was different for me is that I had access consciousness in my life simultaneously. My stepfather started access when I was around 12 years old. And then when I was in my late teens, I had basically gotten extremely suicidal due to entity awareness that wasn't being dealt with. And it wasn't not being dealt with because access was wrong. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to be weird. Teenagers, God, talk about an interesting time of life. So what occurred for me was I went into a lot of psychological difficulty. And little by little, my dad got me to turn towards my awareness. And I started choosing more consciousness, and the suicide the wanting to kill myself left. And what showed up was the awareness of entities that I had been trying to push away for a really long time. And when it showed up, it really freaked me out because it was so many entities that I couldn't see the other side of the room. I call it the entity fog. And when that showed up, I didn't like it and I reacted to it. And I was like, no. And then over the next months, my life just deteriorated to a painful degree. And one night I was at dinner at my parents' house and I was complaining. I was like, oh, my life, la, la, la. My dad's like, well, what did you refuse to do? And I realized in that moment I had refused to talk to the entities. And that talking to entities was such a natural part of my existence that shutting it out, suppressing it, was actually like cutting off one of my legs and breaking my other ankle and then trying to walk. It just was so debilitating to my entire existence. And so in that moment, I remember standing in my parents' kitchen in Goleta, California, going, oh my God, I have no idea what this will look like. But yes, I said yes to the entities. And that was in my very early 20s, and now I'm 46. And Talk to the Entities has developed into a worldwide life-saving phenomenon that empowers people who are entity sensitive or who desire to be more educated and empowered around how to clear entities, how to communicate with entities, how to receive from entities, and how to cooperate with entities. And so I followed that path of entity awareness and developing the initial tools and doing some really cool stuff for years and years and years. And then there would be these like experiences I would have that I could not identify the kind of entity I was dealing with. It was like I couldn't clear the entity. I couldn't really communicate with the entity in the same way that I was communicating, my reference point for communicating with other entities. There was some receiving there, but it was so big and so undefined that I could not work out what was occurring. Until one day, after I demanded more consciousness and more receiving of myself, they broke through to me. And there were these mega beings, and I mean like giants, so big that they were, even without faces, that were so present, so powerful. And that was my first acknowledgement this lifetime as an adult of light beings. And I'm not the only person aware of light beings. You have other people who have talked about them in modern times and in antiquity. They would maybe use a different vocabulary. I know that a lot of people tend to call them angels, but I think that confuses it a little bit, but that's just my point of view. So there are these beings, this mega power that is present. And why most people don't believe it or get it, or even right now you might be listening to this being like, yes, I knew that, but I don't have that direct connection, or I so desperately want that connection, but I don't know how, or I can't get, like whatever. We are taught as a people to stay so much in our heads and be so controlling and so fixated on reality that it is suffocating to anything, that it suffocates any perception outside of the norm. And what exists inside of the norm is so small and so limited and so devoid of the infinite possibility that is. And to perceive, to play with, to receive from light beings, or conscious beings, period. And remember, I don't mean like conscious beings like in a creepy way. I mean like conscious beings like trees, like spirits who are benevolent and kind. Because there are a lot of spirits who are not benevolent and kind, right? There are demons. There is also the forces of darkness. And in the Beings of Light book, I have a chapter on light beings and I have a chapter on demons. And when you read them together, I believe it's an excellent recipe for so much more awareness. Not judgment, wrongness, protection issue. Like, oh my God, let's get over the protecting thing. Let's get over the I'm weak, I need to like be afraid of spirits. Let's move on. Let's be greater. And you are greater. You maybe have never been taught how to deal with entities. And if you're listening to this right now, what do you know is possible? And what can you choose? So when the beings of light first broke into my universe, it was weird for me. And I do tell this story in the Beings of Light book, but it was so altering of my sense of reality that I was paranoid. And what I have learned about myself is that when my receiving increases, I usually misidentify it as paranoia. It's like, I don't know if that's like a universal thing for people, but I now know there's a very specific feeling of paranoia that I get that is either demons or my receiving is increasing. And how do I know the difference? Because I ask, okay, is this demon awareness that I'm not acknowledging, or is my receiving increasing? I know that seems like that's a weird one to have connected to each other, but we actually don't have enough words for the amount of energies that exist. So paranoia is like a blanket statement, but really it's so much more diverse and faceted than that. And how do you become intelligent in energy specificity? By asking questions, by choosing greater consciousness. Oh, and this huge one, trusting yourself. Knowing that you know, and that you're not immediately and automatically going into wrongness, but reaching for what are you aware of. And that's a free will that everybody has. So the beings of light are big, big friends that must not be controlled into the reality that you're comfortable with, but that can be perceived and received if you will relax. Relax, 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 relax. And a really, I think, relevant question in this area is, what world do you want to live in? What world do you want to live in? And I don't mean that like a delusional person. I mean that like, do you realize, or what's true for you, that there are infinite realities occurring all the time. Literally, you and me have different realities. You and the person standing next to you in the grocery store have really different perspectives, different realities. There are literally infinite possibilities. Do you curate? Do you choose? Do you seek what's true for you, like what you know? Not like what's true for you like a creepy person, like this is my truth. Like it's so many of these conversations and questions and tools of consciousness can be so easily weaponized that this conversation, I want to be very clear in this conversation that I'm not talking about rightness and control in the what world do you want to live in. I am talking about choice, and that you have total free will, and you can receive the magic that most people do not acknowledge or completely invalidate or reject. And that's an interesting thing about people. It's like we can believe things that aren't real, which is this interesting phenomenon. Now, what do I mean by we can believe things that aren't real? Well, we believe in concepts, things that we make up and share and then agree on as a society, like money, for example, or other concepts like value. If you handed a, giraffe a pot of gold, would it have the same response to it as you as a person? Animals can't actually believe in what isn't real, but we can, which I think is like a blessing and a curse. And so when we're having a conversation around entities, are they real? Who says if they are or they aren't? And when do you become the source of your knowing? And if you look to others to approve of your point of view, or to agree with you, or to see what you see, that's a way in which we can be rejecting of what gifts the universe desires to gift to us. And this is my experience as a seeker of consciousness. There are so many gifts that the universe desires to be, infinite gifts, like, that so many people don't receive, that they don't acknowledge. Even the people you really care about are not acknowledging them and not receiving them. And that can be really tricky as a person to have a completely different reality than a person that you really deeply love or respect, or you want their approval. But, what if you gave yourself permission to have all your good fortune regardless of who else can see it? And that was sort of like lesson number one for me with entities, was I kept on coming into a huge amount of conflict because I didn't want other people to think I was a freak because I talked about entities or talked to entities or saw entities. I wanted people to agree with me that what I was perceiving was okay. And I learned really early on that if I kept on looking for other people to approve of my awareness, I would always be a slave to other people's points of view. And I just didn't want to do that. What free will, what ease in choosing what you know do you have available to you? And how much are you willing to relax into the contribution from all beings of light? Not from your head. Let them cuddle your being. I love you. I look forward to playing with you in the fields of consciousness. And I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but if you are interested in Talk to the Entities, it will of course be linked below. There is quite a lot of cool stuff available in that area. The Beings of Light book and Beings of Light courses, free material and exercises will also be linked below. How much more are you willing to receive? And what gifts are being given? Thank you for listening to this show. My target is to make consciousness easy to find and choose. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes and share this with somebody who you know who might be looking for more consciousness in their life. You can visit me on shannon-o'hara.com or talktotheentities.com. And to learn more about the amazing tools of Access Consciousness, you can visit accessconsciousness.com and be sure to subscribe to the podcast.